Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, last year, global air passenger demand surged by 10.4%, surpassing pre-pandemic levels. The International Air Transport Association reported that airlines filled an average of 83.5% of available seats, a record high, indicating strong demand right across the world. These record numbers have caught the attention of private equity firms who are now starting to switch their investments from real estate to aviation assets. And I'm now joined by Adam Belusko from Avtrac to tell us more. Adam, you are the Global Head of Sales and Marketing with Avtrac, but provide us with an insight into the services that Avtrac provides to the aviation industry.
Hi, Karl. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the time. Yeah, so Avtrac is a 33-year-old technical asset manager and continuing airworthiness management organization with offices in the UK at London Gatwick Airport and here in the United States. What we do, Karl, is we help global aircraft operators, so airlines and leasing companies, transact business from a technical perspective. So we do pre-purchase inspections, due diligence on aircraft that are on lease with airlines, and then we also do some facilitation and project management of that aircraft transition.
Now, of course, you're a thought leader when it comes to sales and marketing within the aviation sector. So talk to us about how you are differentiating your approach in the sector.
Yeah, Karl, we really take a research-based approach to understanding what our clients' needs are, as well as prospective opportunities within the industry. So we do a lot of following along to capital markets, understanding where capital is coming in, where fleet expansion at airlines exists, and making sure that we're getting in front of those relevant contacts at both the procurement and the technical leadership side of things from a multifaceted approach that includes tools like LinkedIn, Google Ads, and obviously direct outreach through both email and in-person events as much as possible.
So once you identify those opportunities, what happens next?
Yeah, again, it's more of a very multifaceted approach, right? So we're trying to qualify the top of funnel as much as possible and touch those people with relevant content that speaks specific to either their fleet program, so understanding the aircraft types that they're into, the assets that they're into, whether they're new aircraft purchasers and procurers or older asset procurers. From a capital standpoint, it's understanding where those funds are going to be deployed, knowing the types of aircraft that are in their portfolio, and then being able to speak specifically to that from our 33 years of experience and thousands of aircraft that we've managed over the course of time.
How does it differ from a B2B perspective when you're selling into regulated sectors?
Yeah, aside from the compliance that exists in some regards, there's a lot of thought that goes into it and positioning the right content, right? So you have to be very transparent in your approach, but at the same time, you have to understand the guardrails that are in place. You have to know how you can get in front of these people through multiple channels. So if you're on LinkedIn and utilizing LinkedIn, making sure that your LinkedIn messaging complements your Google messaging. Your search has to be highly optimized so that you understand exactly what these people are searching for. And then you have to be able to speak specifically to core events that are happening within the industry or within the broader market as well.
And of course, you're working across continents with Avtrac. So how does your approach differ between countries? Because we often hear about the cultural web when it comes to B2B selling.
Yeah, absolutely, Karl. The issue there is something that was very much exacerbated by the pandemic as well. So our group is made up of people across the globe, okay? So we try to utilize local representatives whenever possible for the performance of our work. But from a marketing standpoint, there's a lot of things that can be done. So you see, reference to cultural holidays, specific events that may be happening within a certain country. So speaking to air traffic growth in India specifically, and then going back and targeting the investors that are in that country, the airlines that are already operating in that country, and even going so specific as to understand some of like the environmental factors that may be affecting their aircraft, their assets. That's all important information that can differentiate you from a marketing standpoint.
How turbulent were the COVID years for Avtrac?
Well, the COVID pandemic was truly a trying time for the entire industry, obviously. We saw the majority of the global fleet grounded. That created issues from parking, storage programs, manpower, supply chain. It was a tough thing to manage, but ultimately what it created for us is it created an opportunity to enhance our continuing airworthiness management program, to highlight the experience that we have putting aircraft into storage programs, sourcing parts to keep aircraft in an airworthy state. And then once we reemerged out of the pandemic, to quickly and efficiently reactivate those aircraft so that they could get back to flying passengers and cargo all around the world.
And what are the emerging trends that are happening in the aviation space right now?
We talk a lot about, the return of passenger demand. So I think one of the issues that we continue to face, and I think is going to be around for a while, is the supply chain constraint for parts and material based on OEM deliveries lagging. So the lack of Boeing and Airbus new aircraft coming into the market continues to be pretty persistent. If we look longer term, there's a lot of talk about, electric vehicles, electric propulsion, hydrogen propulsion. Those are all very interesting concepts, but those are things that are going to continue to take time from a regulatory standpoint. On the capital market side of things, we see a lot of, obviously, volatility across the globe, not just here in the United States and in Europe, but in Asia and in other regions as well. And I think what we ultimately need to understand, and I think is very important to point out, is as this volatility continues to persist, it's how do the capital managers continue to find ways to execute their strategy, generate the types of returns that their investors are looking for. And I think that's where a company such as ours and someone such as myself comes into play, is we're able to help lead non-traditional capital into this space if there's an interest to pursue these asset classes.
Private equity firms and family offices for the first time are looking at investing in the aviation sector. These investment houses in the past were focused on real estate. Is that something that you're seeing yourself in Avtrac?
Absolutely, Carl. I think we're seeing that, and we've seen that over the last couple of years. But I think the benefit here and some of the positive things that exist are obviously typical kind of returns that align with what they expected in their traditional investment strategies, whether that be in real estate, energy, whatever. At the same time, I think there's a lot of commonalities out there that can be drawn between, say, commercial real estate and aviation assets that make it a more comfortable move, while also offering some diversification strategies for these capital structures that exist, right? So you look at commercial real estate or real estate in general, and there's depreciation, there's revenue generation from the asset, there's residual value that exists there. So I think all of those kind of combined with being able to attain some of those returns that may not have been in their traditional strategy exist in aviation, and that presents a lot of attractiveness to non-traditional aviation capital.
And for the clients that you're working with in the finance space, what type of returns are they getting from aviation investments?
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of differs all over the place, but I think the perception is that you're somewhere in the high teens for IRR rates, but as we look forward, there's going to be pressure on those, I assume, in the next couple of years, just because of some of the global uncertainty that exists in the market right now. Obviously, with costs rising, I think that could put a little bit of pressure on it. But ultimately, I think that these are the types of returns that were maybe seen historically in other asset classes that are more available in the aviation space, and can obviously still be attained.
And potentially, what are the risks that are facing these investment houses when things really go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, depending on where you're invested, the risks can be differentiated. But obviously, the worst thing that can happen is like an operating lessor where you own the aircraft and it's being operated by an airline is for the airline to go under and you have to go get the asset back. At the same time, if it's investment into another investor, into a leasing company, into a parts trader, something like that, it's the viability of that platform and its ability to continue to operate in volatile markets. So a lot, again, of kind of the same risks that are involved with investing into real estate and stuff. You need somebody to obviously operate the asset. You need people to pay to want to utilize it and everything. And ultimately, it's how do you recover that in a worst-case scenario, which, again, is a bankruptcy or a repossession scenario.
And when it comes to repossession of aviation assets, how does that differ from real estate?
You have to have a keen understanding of the regulatory environment. Ultimately, I found, from my experience managing repossessions, bankruptcy type scenarios, it's being able to manage the human resources that are available, which are often very limited at the company that has become insolvent. It's working with the administrators, working with the regulators to recover the asset. But even on an aircraft repossession, one of the most important things is to make sure that you're able to pull together all of the technical records to help actually maximize the asset value once it comes out, as well as the marketability for onward operation by somebody else. So it's a very complex scenario that requires a lot of experience and understanding. And that's something that, I feel like myself and my team offer.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Adam Belusko, Global Head of Sales and Marketing with Avtrac. And I'd like to thank Adam for sharing his insights with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.